This Sunday. Every Sunday, side by side at the microphone, from the green light to the speed trap, Chris Switzer and Ray Carino calls them as they sees them, and you better believe them. Here, relevant news, biased opinions, and outright bullshit regarding every aspect of automotive culture. Gasp at mechanical trickery never before revealed over FCC-regulated airwaves. Thrilled to the explosive tension as Chris and Ray cuss each other down the track and barrel roll across the finish line, laughing at certain disaster as they shake hands for the devil. All that and much more this Sunday at high noon on the Motormouth Radio Hour. Call in and speak live with the Wizards of Speed and live feed, Chris Switzer and Ray Carino. Bring the whole family. Kids under 12 get in free. Every Sunday at noon on WHPC. Take the Long Island Expressway to the Meadowbrook Parkway and look for the sign saying no parking on the expressway and no express service on the parkway. Go right on Highway 24 to Garden City. $2 all-day parking includes pit pass. Sunday!
Yeah, I think we found something out with a long lead into a song that we did not expect. So that's all right, we'll overcome that here on Motormouth Radio. You've tuned into Long Island's only automotive talk show with your hosts, Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. How are you today, Chris?
Coming to you live from the Billy Batson Orchestra, the Surf Theater. Right there is Dr. Buzzard, his original Savannah band. I don't know who that was, actually.
Tower of Power.
Oh, who was that?
Tower of Power.
Tower of Power. Okay, that's why I was liking it so much. All right, good.
Exactly, and that's an homage to our guest for today, because we're fortunate to have back with us Lake Speed Jr., who is a tribologist.
Yes,
and no, he doesn't study tribes.
That's where the first thing I was thinking about. He must be studying some sort of tribal behavior of some sort.
No.
but no.
Tribology is a study of lubrication and lubricants and how they interact with machinery and things like that. So yes, that's Lake's forte.
And I do love the fact that he gets into the molecular structure of all types of lubricants, because we can't. Well, basically, I know I can't.
That's where he leaves us in the dust, because, of course, we're not tribologists. We talk about it a little bit. We of course, doing what we do, we all use oils and lubricants for different things, and we all have our conceptions. A lot of people have it's kind of like favorite tool brands, favorite sodas. We have favorite oils. So we'll cover that with Lake. Take care of a little older business first. I don't know if you did anything this week on your cars. Did you have any cause to work on anything?
Some little dopey things. I'm actually working on something that's totally unrelated to oil. I had in the tracker, I think I told you, the reason why I got the car so cheaply was because some clown previously on the vehicle spilled a bucket of paint onto the carpet, like I guess you could say a can of white latex must have split open during while they were driving it, and it dumped all over and of course they left it there so it hardened.
Yeah, sure.
So I am trying to use different techniques to pull the paint from the mouse fur-like carpet that sits in the back of the vehicle. It's also on the back of the back seat.
I think you're doing that last summer too, aren't you?
I spend a little bit of time every chance I get. Whenever I have like 15 or 20 minutes to kill, I will try. I've tried a steamer so far with mixed results. And the steamer, basically what it does is obviously what it says, is it gets the carpet hot enough so the paint will kind of loosen up because of the heat and the moisture, and then you're able to remove it. It kind of removed it.
Yeah.
So I took the back piece that was also covered in paint, took that out, and literally soaked it in a plastic bin, the whole thing. I put it left it outside, put the whole thing in water, and let it just saturated it.
Yeah,
and I let that sit for a couple of days. And every once in a while, I'd scrub it, put it back in, take it out when it was drenched, and scrub it again with a light wire brush. I didn't want to use something that was heavier because I didn't feel like punching through the carpet.
Right.
But so I'm in the mundane process of doing that. And it is mundane, and it is incredibly unexciting.
Yeah. Well,
but it's working.
I had some fun. I did some mechanical stuff. I don't know if I remember told you, I think it was about 2 years ago. My Fiat, I forget, I guess I heard a noise and a rumble, and I looked.
Heard a noise in the Fiat? What a surprise.
I guess. And what happened was the right front shock absorber, where the shock comes through the body, it pulled through. That piece of metal that the shock was, it just literally fell right through.
Didn't that happen a couple of years ago?
I think it's about 2 years ago. So
and you're still driving it that way?
Oh, yeah. Drive around 3 shocks. Not a problem. Because the suspension is so stiff in that car that you didn't know that you only had 3 shocks. But, the thing was, I found out last year I didn't use that car hardly much at all. Right. I think maybe 200 miles I drove it. That was it. Wow. I took it out to get it inspected and I put it back. So, but now this year I'm driving it. I took it out early and I'm using it.
Good.
I was at the shop yesterday because Project Mustang, which I haven't found a name for yet. The car deserves...
Just call it a Mustang. What do you have to find a clever name for it for?
Because I've worked on so many Mustangs, like which one? So I don't know. I think it deserves a name, and the owner was there. I should have asked him yesterday, but I didn't think to do it. So anyway, we got that.
If all of my cars had a name, we'd be thrown off the air.
Yeah. So anyway, what I did was after I got done with what I could do on that car for yesterday, I said, you know what? Let me. Since I'm at the shop and they have the really good Miller welder that I love, it makes me a 500% better welder.
Nice.
I said, let me weld. I found a piece of metal that I could weld in place, and it's very hard to get at. It was tough. So the story with the welder was a whole other story. There was no wire in the welder. There was no gas in the welder. There was another hour's worth of getting the welder working. And then I welded this plate in and... put it in. When I had the car up on the lift, I said, hey, you know what? Let me take a look around. Let me look underneath, see if anything else is.
Sure.
And then I saw the things that happened that really disturbed me. That car, I had put all new front suspension in. And I painted the springs red. I painted the suspension parts black. Everything was new. Of course, that is 21 years ago. But just from...
This is on the Fiat.
Yeah, just from the car being driven and stored in an inside garage without being in the snow or rain, things start to rust. It'll happen over time to every car.
Yes, every car.
So I got to see that when that was bothering me a little. But I did get to do a little undercarriage checks and a quick clutch adjustment. And let me tell you something. Those Italian engineers, whoever spec'd this out, they got to have their vermicelli inspected because you have a clutch cable that comes through a bracket in the bell housing, and then you have the big adjusting nut, and then you have a lock nut on the threaded collar.
Okay. Cable, big adjusting nut, lock nut. Got it.
And typically with American stuff, I found even with Japanese stuff. Usually when you have 2 nuts of different sizes like that, even on a brake
have a radio
system,
show.
That's a whole nother setup, right?
Yes, I've heard that.
That was last week's setup. So even on the brakes, when you have like a line nut and then you have a fitting nut, usually they're 2 sizes different.
Right.
So if one's in 8, the other's going to be like an 11 or a 12. If one's in 10, the other will be like a 13. Right?
Makes sense.
Well, the little lock nut is a 10 millimeter size, right?
Okay.
What size?
10 millimeter.
10 millimeter. So what size do you think the larger nut was?
Don't tell me. It was.
Let me tell you. I had to tell you. I took 4 trips to the toolbox.
Wow. You don't have the internal nut size gauge between your thumb and your forefinger?
I will tell you something. I am usually very, very good with sizing nuts or bolts by looking at them.
Exactly. I am too. It must have been one thing we agree on.
This is what pinballed my brain, knowing that the nuts are usually a couple sizes off. And I knew that this was going to be different
Right.
You know, but I guess it didn't compute. It was a 17. Yeah. When I went for the 16, I said, "Oh, this has got to be it." Like, no! What dopey idiot. Who figured that out? I don't know. That was so crazy. A 10 and a 17.
I actually take that into consideration. I'm a person that prides myself on literally taking my index finger, my thumb, and just going up against the nut and going, yeah, that's a 10 millimeter, or yes, that's a 7/16, or yes, that's a 1/2, or yes, that's a 12 millimeter. I pride myself on that talent. So
right.
Yeah, if I have to make 4 trips, and especially if I'm getting up off the ground, because I'm not slick and exotic like you, that has a benefit of a lift.
Right.
Yeah, when you got to get up off the ground.
Oh, I know.
And you know what? Who wants to go under the car with a handful of wrenches?
No, not me.
I think that's got to be so bush league. But you know what? Getting up 4 times off the ground is pretty stupid too.
I don't want to do it for another reason than you might not want to do it. I don't want to subject my wrenches to being put on the concrete.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I mean, they fall. Yes, they fall. They make beautiful sounds when they fall, and it makes me cringe every time because they're such nice high chrome finish. But it just bothers me to put the chrome tools on the ground. I just don't like doing that.
And I'll tell you, I could use a 17 millimeter wrench as a hammer.
I bet you could. Yeah.
It's a wrench.
I know.
It's not art. It's a tool.
Yeah. When you spend more for that one wrench than you would have spent for maybe a lunch, you know, you tend to treat it a little differently. So, but I will say something, boy. It's, we're not being sponsored. I wish we were, but those Miller welders, I love them, and I want one. Yeah, I want one just like it. It is a phenomenal piece of equipment. It just works. It makes, it has an auto sense feature. That's probably what makes it so much better. It auto senses, and I guess it can auto adjust. The current or whatever based on the metals. You do have to make a few settings, just like 2 settings, hit auto sense, bang, it's done, and you're off and running.
Well, if I was handling it and had auto common sense, it wouldn't run.
Right, exactly.
You don't have the technology, sir. Yes. You don't have the education to run this well.
Sorry, you're not qualified.
Where did you weld the metal, on the top of the shock tower or underneath?
I had to go from the top.
You did.
And the problem is, you're in the engine bay, and there's like an inner wheel well that's part of the car, and through that is where you saw this next structure down by the control arm. It's at the top of the pocket where the spring lives, obviously because the shock goes through the spring. So you're already 2 levels down, and to get around the back of that was almost like literally impossible. So listen, I'll see if it holds. I got it as good as I could get it this time. Let's see if it holds. If it rips apart again, I don't know. I'm going to have to go to plan B. I don't know what that's going to be, but I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet.
Plan B is going to be a whole new structure, right?
Go buy a Miata. No, I'll go buy an S2000.
Hey, I'm with you.
I like the Hondas. I buy an S2000.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention Miatas and working on your Fiat. I have been seeing more car advertisements on Facebook Marketplace. Everybody is cleaning out their garage. I think if you want to find a good project car, now's the time to look, because I've seen a couple of TR6s that were almost reasonably priced, which I was incredibly...
We were talking about TR6s yesterday, but you know what? Forget the Triumphs, forget the Fiats.
Yes.
We now have Mr. Lake Speed Jr. with us. Lake, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Lake.
Good, guys. How y'all doing today?
Excellent.
Doing fantastic, and we're glad to see you.
I like your shirt, man. That's cool. I like the speed.
Yeah, that was what
that
was
just for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what there was. I was trying to find like a product shirt, and like I really wish I had an STP shirt to wear, but I don't. I said, I don't know. I don't have any oil product shirts. I have plenty of shirts stained with oil, but. Yeah. Right.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I have shirts that are oil soaked. But...
Right. So, Lake, let's jump right into the pool. If it was, your channel on YouTube, the Motor Oil Geek, is phenomenal. I watch it all the time. You answer all the questions that we have. And last time you were on, we asked you a few questions, and you said, I'm not going to answer them because I have upcoming videos on that topic. So, time is going to run out fast. So let's jump right into it. When we, something Chris and I were talking about just before the show, and you did a video on was when does oil go bad? Mm-hmm. And I was explaining to Chris about how you did your video and you know how the oil does separate, the additive package separates, and you cut the bottles and half and all. Chris, you claim you have 10-year-old oil that's...
Yes. So, Lake, your answer may determine whether I can throw out some of my oil stash, most of my oil stash, or all of my oil stash. Yeah. So,
well, a good rule of thumb, is about 5 years.
5.
5's like a safe number. Like if it's less than 5 years old,
okay,
you don't need to worry about it, right?
Let me get started. Let me get started now because so you guys do the rest of the show.
Yeah, go throw it out.
My oil.
But I'm saying is over 5 years old, and this is the big variable, depending upon how it was stored.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Ray had said. Yes.
You mentioned in the video, it's not about high temperature. Literally, oil sitting on the shelf in a warehouse in Arizona is going to have a longer storage life than oil sitting on the shelf in Alberta, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the cold temperature affects it worse than the high temperature does.
Got it.
I've seen oils that are still good after 10 years in storage in a warm, climate-controlled area. So it's always 70 degrees. It never gets colder than that. It never gets really much hotter than that. It's just pretty consistent. It lasts for a long time. If it's conventional oil, conventional oils typically have more solubility than synthetics.
Oh,
okay.
Synthetic usually won't have as long a storage life as a conventional oil will.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So there's a lot of variables.
Right.
I mean, everyone wishes, and I wish it was the case. There were simple answers for everything related to oil. Like, just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Just do that.
Yeah.
It'll always work.
Right.
It doesn't work that way, right? There's all these other factors. Environment is a big one. And so storage is a big part of how long it lasts. So if you got some of this 10 years old, it's been in your garage, and it's been climate controlled, and it's mineral based, or you choose to use it, follow what we did in the test. It's easy to just go pour some into a jar and look at it. If it comes out looking like tar and it's dark and black, it's not good. Don't use it.
Yeah.
Got it. Because here in the Northeast, obviously, we have our 100-degree days at times in the summer, and we have our 10-degree days in the winter. So, and I know all of us, everybody within the listening area right now is probably going, oh, crud, my oil's been sitting in the garage.
It's probably bad. Be realistic.
So it's probably bad.
Right.
Yeah, probably bad. I mean, especially like we saw in the one video with the plastic bottles. They breathe.
Oh.
There was water, multiple bottles, just one case of oil that had been sitting in the shop for years.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Now,
okay, I got a job to do now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Now, the other thing that affects most us specifically and most of the listeners, we all have older cars and with flat tappet cams. And so zinc is the issue. And I learned so much about zinc. I thought I knew enough until I started watching your, because I might have been a believer of like, well, if some zinc is good, more zinc must be better, right? No.
Right. No.
Please explain why.
Well, zinc is also acidic, right? And there's more than one type of zinc. So let's just be real clear of this. Again, this is just like we talked about with the storage. There's a lot of variables and the answer is complex. Zinc, there's more than one type. But generally speaking, if you have an oil with no zinc, no ZDP in it, you're going to have a very high level of adhesive wear. Metal on metal, rubbing together, not good. As you add zinc, wear will drop considerably, quickly. Kind of plateau, and kind of normalize. If you keep adding zinc, it becomes acidic.
Right. Corrosive wear.
Add too much zinc, it can become highly acidic and do all kinds of other bad things to your engine that you don't want. So oil's about balance. It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's like one of my favorite analogies.
Yeah.
Everything to do with chemistry. And if anyone has any kind of background in chemistry, you're going to know. You have to have a balanced equation for everything to work right.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, that applies to everything.
Sure.
You have to have balance. Too much of something is not good. Too little of something is not good. It has to be balanced. The application always dictate the chemistry.
Right.
So the older cars, flat tappets, do want a little more ZDP activity. The good news is this, is that so 20 years ago, big changes to oil where they were reducing the levels of ZDP, increasing the level of detergents in the oil to try to get longer drain intervals and things like that. Well, that actually caused a lot of these flat tappet camshaft problems that people saw. And the answer was, go grab a bottle of zinc or grab a high zinc oil. And 20 years ago, that was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, today, we now have what's called API SP, which is a brand new spec of oil. It's only been out for a couple of years ago. Back then, it was API SM when all this stuff started. And just to give you some hard numbers, so API SM came out. They had taken the ZDP level, the maximum, and they had brought it down from 1,000 to 800. Everyone said, that's the reason why. More to the story. Calcium detergent levels, SL to SM, way back in the day, had gone up. So your normal calcium levels are now around 2,400 parts per million. Your ZDP is down here at 800 parts per million.
Uh-huh.
So there was a zinc detergent imbalance.
Right.
That's what created all the flat tappet camshaft problems with off-the-shelf oils 20 years ago.
So how close should that gap be for best protection? Oh, it's almost parity. Yeah. Okay.
Even.
Gotcha.
Yeah. When you get it about even, it's really good. Because if you get too much zinc, detergent, it becomes acidic.
Yeah.
Where when you balance them, work really good.
That's the other thing I learned was
right. And if people pay attention to my videos, right?
Yeah.
The last video. I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now, right? So the last video we made a trip to Valvoline's R&D Center.
Phenomenal.
And I've got some people, comments, it's an ad, Valvoline should be writing you a check. I'm like, dude, if you think that, you missed the point of the video.
Like you drove me
missed the point of the video.
You drove me to go to the site to download some of the oil analysis stuff that I have questions about. It's like,
hang on one second, we'll get there.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
The reason why I made the video, when people are asking about that product, so like, hey, I happen to know the guy that's in charge of R&D for the company globally, I can probably get an answer. But the key thing is that it was a balanced chemistry. It wasn't a whole bunch of one thing or a little of another thing that made that product do what it does. So it reminded me of, hey, I've seen this before, that it's not some extreme, out of balance formulation that's going to do the trick. It's when you have it in the right balance, that's where the real magic can come in. And so it's not about what's on the spec sheet always. It's about how the whole thing works. And that was the whole point of that video, was hey, here's two different examples. Wear rate, one of them, cleanliness of the other one, is how we do this. Now, back to the ZDP issue that you asked about for the old cars. People's answer back then was when you had a high level of detergent, high level of detergent, low level of zinc, what happened was to bring the zinc up. So people started adding ZDP to try to balance. You can't take the detergent out, so you just added more zinc to it.
Right.
To try to get it closer. And that helped.
That was going to be my next question, yeah.
It definitely helped, right? Mm-hmm. Which is why people started using zinc additives. But then some people say, well, if one bottle is good, well, two must be better.
Yeah.
You get it cracked out. Fortunately, today, with the new API SP oils, because of this thing called low-speed pre-ignition that was happening in the cars, they realized that calcium detergent was actually causing detonation in modern injected, especially the turbocharged ones, engines. So the calcium levels have come way down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So there are a lot of cases, they're pretty close now. And then, of course, over time, guess what? There's other things you can add to the oil besides ZDP that help increase the wear protection, like molybdenum, and there's some other they call them organic compounds that don't show up as metals in the oil, so that today's API SP oils protect way better than the old API S oils. And I'm going to give you a little sneak peek here. We have a video coming up here pretty soon where we ran off the shelf motor oils without any extra zinc in them and in a flat tappet cam engine, and none of them died. And we're going to show everybody the results.
I want to tell you, but I already mentioned to you in the email, one of the cars I have, it's a dual overhead cam 4-cylinder, which I guess you would consider, it's a shim and bucket. I guess that's got to be considered a flat tap, right? I haven't used high zinc oil in that car in 21 years, and I'm driving it today, and it's fine.
Well, yeah, I remember, too, one of the biggest issues, and this is really where people kind of struggle. The flat tappet interface is important because it's sliding friction. The real story here isn't that it has sliding friction, the amount of load. Mm-hmm. So when you've got a dual overhead cam and you've got 4 valves per cylinder, you have that sliding friction, very low load.
Yeah.
Really big. The buckets are big.
They are.
The cam lobes are big. So, but the spring pressures are low.
Right.
So that means that total load per square inch.
Yeah.
When you have a big block Chevy, big old honking valves, push rods, you've got all this valve spring pressure. That's where you get the problem. And the other thing too is it's the exhaust side. When you have a higher compression engine, your hot rodded big block, more compression, now that exhaust cam has to open against the exhaust valve pressure.
Right. So
that adds load to the system that's not just dynamic, or just not just static in the system. So that's a big part of it people don't look into. That basically that zinc appetite for the engine really depends on the valve spring pressures, which is why the racing guys saw this way before the street guys saw it. Why? Race guys turn more RPM. You turn more RPM, what do you typically do? You got to add valve spring pressure.
Sure.
Those are the guys that saw it first. There is logic to all this stuff. When you step back and you remove all the marketing crap, science, it becomes pretty clear what the real answers are. Then you can make educated decisions and not have to make fear-based responses.
Right.
And that's the whole point of my channel, is I hate the marketing.
Well, and that was the ironic that you made the statement of how ironic it was that when your dad raced, and very successfully, he was sponsored by an additive company.
Absolutely. I'll own the irony here. Well, right? Yeah. Like, I am biting the hand that feeds me. Yeah. Right?
You didn't do it.
I will. It's okay.
Yeah. That is
the reality is my objective, my loyalty is to the viewer. I'm just trying to help people, right? And the goal of my channel is to teach you to fish.
Right.
Give you a fish. I want to teach you to fish.
Right. Well, since then, I have a few friends who like to use the zinc additive to buy, so they can buy cheaper oil. And I told them, listen, you don't know what you're doing. You're playing. I said, let me paraphrase from a friend of mine who's smarter than me. You're playing chemical Russian roulette. And I said, you don't know how much you have in there now, do you? And they're like, well, no, but... And I said, and sometimes you might have thought if 1 bottle was good, right? 2 bottles might be better. Yeah. Well, no. So we do propagate like you are teaching, and it is getting disseminated out to the troops, which is... and that's the beauty of it. So let me stop us right here for a second. Let's take a break. We have to take our bottom of the hour break. We're going to make it a quick one today. And... have a little bit of a read to do, and then we'll continue on because I have more questions. So I have to ask, are you a proud member of the Nassau Community College alumni? Well, you can find out more information about the Nassau Community College Alumni Association by visiting ncc.edu/alumni. And we'll throw that on the floor. I have to report on the weather. The WHPC weather forecast is powered by Pantano's Gourmet with locations in Hewlett and Uniondale. We have beautiful weather. I'm in the convertible today. Yes, Cliff, it's convertible weather. We are in the 70s.
Sure is.
They said a high of 81. I don't think it'll hit there. Low of 7. We're in the 70s. A little bit of cloud cover. Low humidity. It's beautiful. Tonight's going to be in the 60s. More of the same beautifulness. Chris, do we have an honor group of the hour?
We sure do, Ray. Right here at Motor Mouth Radio, we like to honor a group a week. and tip our hats off to them. And this week, the Motor Mouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour, if you ever stripped automotive wire with your teeth, were you ever lying under the dash installing a stereo when in the middle of a splice, you realize you can't move and you're lying on top of the wire splicers? So you can't reach those. What do? Put the cut wire in your mouth, bite down, and pull. Works on all types of wire from gauge 2 to 18 gauge thicknesses, but anything thicker than that, you may need multiple pulls. So if you carry a wire stripper somewhere in your mouth, could be next to the wire crimper that's already there, then you're part of the Motor Mouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour. Just make sure, if you're going to do something that damaging, make sure the power is off.
You know, I've never done that. I never have. But I tell you, I have seen so many people do that through the years. I mean, I had a friend who used to open beer bottles with his teeth back when we were teenagers. Yeah, well, he probably has a beautiful set of implants today, you know.
I watched someone do it this week, and I actually gasped. So and I was like...
I've done it. I'll own it. I've done that.
The
beer bottle, no, but the wire stripper.
Wire stripper. Yeah. Congratulations, Lake. You are part of the Motor Mouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour, and worthy enough to admit it. I love it. All
right, so let me play these spots real quick, and we'll be back with more Motor Mouth Radio, Ray Guarino, Chris Switzer, and Mr. Lake Speed Jr., where we're going to cruise through that second half real quick, but we have some real topical stuff. Lake, pick the song. I know you missed it the first time we had you on because I used it as a lead song, so I'll use it as our second song now, just for you. Enjoy the little bit of it that you get to hear, and we'll be back in a minute on 90.3 WHPC.
Well, now listen, people, let me tell you something new. I sing a song called the Crude Oil Blues. We're low on heat and on, we're low on gas. And I'm so cold, I'm about to freeze myself.
Your car not running right? Let the Motor Mouths help you out at 516-572-7440.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Limbrook and Oceanside, who remind you that New York State law says you always have the right to choose which shop will fix your car. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services, 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. All repairs include the CarStar Lifetime Nationwide Warranty, ensuring that the experts at Celebrity Chase Collision are always on your side.
Y sí, hablamos español.
More information is available at 516-593-0920 or online at celebritychasecollision.com.
Hey, you, get over here. Every Sunday, 12 to 1, you are going to tune in to hear the Motor Mouths, my friends Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. 90.3 FM, WHPC. You might learn something.
All right. We're back.
When we made this record, there was a little
and we had Jerry Reed helping us with the Crude Oil Blues back from the early 80s. Great song, great song.
Love Jerry Reed.
I know.
He's iconic, man.
And I wonder, Lake, let me ask you now, we do this, we've always done this kind of, we'll just throw you on the spot. You heard our good friend Chassis John, who's no longer with us, do that little spot for us. I'd love to have a Lake Speed little promo drop that I could play for Motor Mouth Radio. So... You could either just spit it out, or if you want to record something, send it to me. You can do that too, and I would love to get you in our mix. So
yes, I'm done.
Okay, all right. So we're talking oil and Lake's the Lake's channel, the Motor Oil Geek, which is absolutely phenomenal. You learn so much. Dave's Automotive in Utah. That place blew me away. First of all, seeing the machinery, when you walked in and they showing you the crank machines and I'm like, whoa, this was off the chart. Seemed like some very, 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 very good people over there. That was just fantastic.
What's great about what they've done there is they've really embraced the modern machining methods in terms of using CNC type machines, so the CNC hone, the CNC type seat and guide machines, and the F69, which is the big boring machine for blocks, so it can bore, it can deck, it can do all those things. The real advantage of these modern machines, not only the accuracy and repeatability, which is what CNCs are great for, Of course, you got to be an operator, right? You have to know what you're doing. It's like any machine. It's not just pushing buttons. You got to really know what you're trying to do. But the fact that you can kind of walk away. So that's what really helps these modern shops, is that you can go set up a block in a machine. You got your program in there to, board or deck it or whatever, hone it, whatever you're going to do. And you can literally push the button and walk away and go do something else. Mm-hmm. So it makes the shops more productive, especially now that we all know there's been a big deficit in terms of the trade skills, right? There's a lot of shops that need skilled tradesmen, but we have a decade or more where people weren't told to embrace the trade. So there's a big gap in the people that understand the trades. So these modern machines kind of really serve two purposes in addressing that, we'll call it trade gap. One, it lets experienced seasoned shop owner get more productivity with the number of people he has. Mm-hmm. But number two, and just as important, it's actually allowing some of these shops to attract younger people and teach them how to do it. Because no offense to anybody, but if you walk into an old dark shop that has manual Bridgeport and a manual lathe, which are cool machines, right? I love them. Oh, yeah. That's what I grew up learning to use. Not good at either one of them, but I know how to use them. Though. Right. If you're a modern young guy or gal, because it's not just guys, right? The machine doesn't feel intuitive because you've grown up with electronics. But that CNC machine is intuitive. Younger people, right? They're completely comfortable with the touch screens and the programming. It makes sense. So they're actually able to attract the people they're trying to get because they have pieces of equipment, machines that they're interested in learning and using.
Same thing with 3D. Same thing with 3D printing.
Absolutely,
they fall right into it. Yeah.
So it's that's the real thing, and you're seeing more and more shops now recognizing you need to have modern CNC equipment. Which is why we do so much work with the guys at Rottler, because they have a great suite of machines, from boring, honing, decking, seat and guide, all that stuff. And they've got great tech support, and they've got people that can train. We do all kinds of, literally, we're going to go do a class this week on honing, and it's a hands-on class. And that's the thing. So there's a lot of resources now to help people, bridge that gap and go from the old manual machines to the modern CNC machines and take advantage of all the good things that can come from it.
Right. So, Lake, I want to jump back here to the oil because our time's going to run out fast. You turned me on to an oil now that I think is going to be my go-to, and that's one of the ones. It's this Valvoline Restore and Protect. This thing looks like the best thing since sliced bread as far as oil goes. And I was curious, so I looked, and I see that it's got 850 parts per million of zinc and 770 of phosphorus, which I guess was average. And then my local Walmart also has the VR1 oil, which I'll use for my my older car. That's got 1,400 parts of zinc and 1,300 of phosphorus. But that Restore and Protect, you talked about flushes and how you don't like motor flushes. We've talked about them on this show, and we've had nothing but trouble with them.
Yeah, disastrous results.
The other takeaway was that the fuel editor...
I love hearing that, by the way.
The other thing was that through your show that I learned, that we've also learned the hard way, was oil additives, not so great. Fuel additives can be very, very good and very useful, right? So we do that. So tell me about this Restore and Protect. What's the magic in there that is... Because I saw the video and I saw how that engine got cleaned by just running this motor oil. And it doesn't do any damage, on the other side. So it seems like a great product.
What makes it not act like a motor flush? If you're
so great question. So a lot of the motor flushes that I've seen typically are lower viscosities. They have a very high level of solvency to them. And so the idea is it's rapid deposit removal. All of them will tell you, run this for a short amount of time and then change the oil, right? So, because they recognize, hey, this stuff's going to overload the filter if you don't watch it.
Right.
So, but you pay a price for that, right? When you have, we'll call it rapid deposit removal, it doesn't just instantly just leave that ringland or rubber part and just beam me up Scotty, land in the filter. It moves through the engine.
Right.
So you end up causing, we've seen it several times, an increased amount of wear overall in the engine because you have a higher level of debris moving through the engine. Right. So that's one of the downsides to a flush type product. It lowers the viscosity, which is not good for your engine, and can increase wear. What's neat about the Restore and Protect, and again, like Roger said in the video, it goes back to their learning experience from Cummins when they had these engines. I think it was an ISX or an ISD engine, something like that, that was having ringland deposits that was causing oil consumption. They developed this called Restore. It was super aggressive, one use, and you had to change the filter at half the interval because it could. I mean, it was going to get that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
It would clean engines like no business. I even said in the video, it literally plugged my son's catalytic converter. There was so much carbon in that engine, like in the ringlands, in the pistons, that it cleaned so much carbon off those pistons that it all went right out the exhaust, right into the catalytic converter and ruined the catalytic converter.
Yeah.
But Lake, did it ruin the compression as well? Because a lot of times a lot of carbon gets built into the. No, that was able to be.
No, the engine actually, once we got the catalytic converter removed and put a new one on that flow and actually move air through it, better than it run before.
This is what happened with my daughter's RAV4. She got it off a lease. I guess it hadn't had regular oil changes. I noticed it was using oil. And I did some research and found out that those 4 cylinders had some sticky ring issues if they didn't get. So I started doing maybe 100 or 200 miles before I was going to change the oil, I would put Marvel Mystery Oil in it. And then I would do my oil change. And after it took a couple of years, but now at this point, the car isn't really using any more oil. It did finally, you know, but I did it in a gentle way, not, I didn't want to go overdo it. And, but to know there's a product now like this Restore and Protect that can help with something like that, instead of having to be a junior chemist and try your hand at, and you actually used the Marvel on your video and showed.
And that's the great thing with the Restore and Protect is that they've had that learning with Cummins. They have their own test labs. They were able to kind of work it out and see we can gradually remove these deposits, make the progress in cleaning the engine without overwhelming the system.
Right.
I mean, I was impressed enough by how they've through this and developed the chemistry. And there's things I know I can't say, right? Because Roger's a good buddy,
right?
And he trusts me to. I mean, I don't know what's in it. They didn't show me the chemistry, but I know enough about oil formulating that I can read the tea leaves, but I'm not going to say anything, right, about what it is. But what I know. I mean, I literally went and bought 2 jugs of it yesterday and changed my wife's fan and put it in my wife's fan because hers has got 100 and something 60,000 miles, and I'm like, this is going to be the tail of the tape right here.
Yep.
Because we want to see it clean it up, and I think that will help it because her van runs great otherwise, and she's happy with it. She likes it, so there's no reason to.
So will you section the oil filters when you do the change and see if you see any more particulate matter than expected, or are you going to let that?
Well, I'm going to do oil analysis along the way,
right?
And so I took a baseline sample yesterday before I changed the oil, and then we're going to do what's called particle counts, which tells you can count the total number of particles in the oil. So I know what it is before we put it in.
Right.
We're going to be able to look at little things like perfect example was like literally her dipstick has got varnish on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We're going to be able to use the dipstick as that visual reference. Like
right.
Blocker in there so you can't get a borescope really in there very good because it basically keeps stuff from falling in the engine.
Yeah, you get it on the underside. Nice. You get on the underside of the oil cap too. You'll see that varnishy material.
It's there, yeah. So we're going to use those as kind of our visual references to see how it's doing in terms of cleaning up. But then I want to use that particle count to see what is that level of particulate the oil go to. Does it go crazy high or low? And that's the nice thing about, the fact I have an oil analysis company and we do thousands of oil samples a year. We have this giant database. Right. So I can compare what we're seeing and look at it from a big picture perspective as opposed to just a single sample, a single unit, and then try to draw universal conclusions from one sample. You can't do that.
Right.
Not realistically. I mean, that's
that's
the microcosm of most bad internet advice.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife loves hearing about this stuff, but we do, and
yes.
that leads me to another question I want to ask you. Oil analysis, the home guy, the home mechanic, the home oil changer who wants to see what's going on. What's the best method for having oil analyzed for someone like that who doesn't have deep pockets, can just do it every week on their car? Where would we go? Where would guys like us go to have that done?
Well, there's lots of places you can go get oil analysis done. Like if you feel pretty confident in your ability to sense of the reports yourself and not really need any guidance, then probably the best place to go is your local Caterpillar dealership.
Wow. Well,
Caterpillar does oil analysis all the time.
Okay.
That globally, wherever there's a Caterpillar dealership, there's going to be what they call their SOS, fluid analysis service there.
I don't know if I have a Caterpillar guy, but I figure what we'll do is we'll just call you.
Well, that was the next thing, right? So the cheap way to do it to get data is Caterpillar, right? They're super good at that. Usually pretty local, very affordable, but you're on your own in terms of making sense of the numbers, right? And they're set up to run diesel stuff, right? And that's and all that. If you really want higher end, that's going to help you in like the reports that we do with my company, Speed Diagnostics. It's color coded. Now I always like to say, like if you can navigate a stoplight, you can read one of our reports,
right?
Because if everything's green, you're good. You got nothing to worry about.
That's the type of report I like.
You need to you got to make a decision here. Am I going to stop or am I going to keep going? Because there's something here that says you need to pay attention.
Right.
If it's red.
Right. Stop. So can people go to speeddiagnostics.com and then find the information they need to?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's spelled weird. So it's SPEED IAGOS. It's not two words, just all one word.
Right.
X at the end.
Okay. I'll have to look.
I just simply typed in your name, and it came up.
That probably comes up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, just type in Lake Speed Junior, and the Bing comes right up. So
right.
Mm-hmm. That's how.
So you did another thing that was.
That's good. That's nice.
Yeah. You did another thing that was good, and so people would know later on. This radio show will be broadcast on our YouTube channel on Motormouth Video, so people can see that. Last time, like, you gave us numbers like we haven't seen. People, they all tuned in to see you, I guess, because they don't tune in to see us. But
right.
So people do want to see what you have to say. And one of the things that you broke that is kind of one of those, William Shatner moments, I call it, is you talked about the worst additives for oil, which I was kind of surprised to see it. But I love seeing stuff like that because these are the products we see on the shelves all the time. And I give you credit for doing that because, you're not worried about having black limos outside the house at night.
And everybody's got an opinion when it comes down to motor oil. So it's so nice. Everybody's got an opinion, just like something else. Everybody's got one.
Right.
And and that's why we love having you on the show because you're the one that sets us all straight. Basically, and that's like
I said, people have strong opinions about motor oil.
Yes.
They have stronger opinions about their additives.
Yeah.
Like if you love that additive, baby, you love that additive. I done called your baby ugly when I said, Lucas Oil shortens your oil life. I mean, people got mad, like feelings.
I'll tell you the truth. Back in the late '80s,
ran PVDOT oxidation test, and it shortened the life of the oil.
Yeah.
Can't help that. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's just a fact.
Back in the late 80s, someone turned me on to PTFE, and I was buying it in quart bottles under the brand Tough Oil, and I added it in my oil, but I had my first Fiat at the time, and I put it in the transmission, the manual transmission, and the rear end, and I swear I felt that car shift better. It was...
PTFE is slick stuff. Listen, I'm as guilty as anybody about all these things. put Slick 50 in my transmission. I put racing oil in my engine before and then killed all my O2 sensors and had to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I have done every bad thing that I rag on people about in the video. So I'm as guilty as charged as anybody else, which is how I know.
Right.
That's how we do this show. It's exactly it. You're perfect for this program.
I'll tell you how bad I was.
Stripping the wire with my teeth. I'm that guy.
I'll tell you how bad I was with the PTFE. I had it in the motor oil in my cars, and the first Fiat, I was about 8 miles away from home, and the oil filter housing gasket blew out and literally like emptied the engine of oil. And I didn't know it till I was halfway home. I smelled so I looked at it and I said, wow, well, the engine's not making noise. The temperature really isn't going up. I'm going to keep driving and see what can happen. And I got home, and then I repaired the problem, and I said, see, it was that PTFE that saved my life, saved my ass, it saved my motor. That's how the Kool-Aid affected me, I believe it.
And that's the thing, is that we all have anecdotal stories, right? A lot of people have anecdotal stories. I even said in the video, right? Hey, somebody's going to say, man, I used XYZ additive. I used PTFE. I picked up 5 horsepower.
Right.
I drove for 5 miles without oil.
Yeah.
There's me somebody else that used that additive, lost 5 main bearings.
Right.
Who's lying?
Right.
Neither one of them are lying. It's that you have completely different experiences because you had different environments.
Right.
What was happening, the situation you were in, all those things are
different.
The variables you don't know, variables is what gets you in trouble, because you go out and say, well, this product did X for me, therefore it should do the same for you. No one else is in your exact same scenario with your type of engine, the climate you were in, the weather of that was day, all those things. It's crazy, but all those things do.
Yeah, it's also like what I talk with my wife about all the time. We talk about, things going on in the country, political stuff and all. And I say, the polls said, whoever's poll it was, I said, what was their sample group for that data? How big was the sample group? I said, because, I did a little bit of work in that field. And I said, is it 10, 100, 100,000? There's significance in different numbers. And they don't tell you that. They never do. So
basically, you have to know where your advice is coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is so key, man, because that's where you miss it. If it's your sample size is 1, I wouldn't trust that.
No.
That can easily be the outlier.
Right. Yeah.
Statistics. And you just don't know you're the outlier. I mean, it's kind of this is going to sound really snarky, so don't take it that way. But what I see a lot of times is people will have their experience, and because it didn't fail, right? Believe, as a student perspective, right. It's kind of like saying, well, I didn't fail the test, or I must have made an A.
Right.
You might be a C student, and you just don't know it.
Right. Very true. And that's, statistical significance is very important. But you need to know more than just, you need to see that data in that group. And same thing with the oil testing. It's so true. So that's why I'm glad there's channels like yours, and I'm glad I stumbled on it the way I did. I think the algorithm in YouTube must have popped it up into my feed to say, hey, you'll probably like this. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who I never saw him before. And I'm like, what's he doing?
We're just getting started, too. That's the best part. I mean, we have only scratched the surface. There's so much more stuff to come where we can really geek out on these things. I was thinking about this morning, a couple of things like, I'm going to do this. This will be really cool. It'll take probably a year to do this video because it'll take so long to get all the individual samples, all the data points over time to be able to collect it. But there's a lot of things we're going to be able to do, because people are watching the videos. That is the nice thing. It's like when you watch the videos, not only are you hopefully being entertained, you're learning something and you're enjoying it, but you're also creating the revenue stream that allows us to do more.
Right.
And if you support us via the speed diagnostics, doing the oil analysis, you just are enabling us to do more and build a larger collective database where we can all benefit from that shared resource.
Right.
That's one of the next level things I hope to get to in the future is being able to begin to leverage the database we have of all of these oils, all these different samples to be able to help people get faster answers about what they should be doing, or get them on the right track. Not my opinion, on tons of data and say, hey,
science, right.
Here's what the data says. You should be doing this. Not what Lake says, not what I think. The data says, make your own decision.
Can you run us through what's entailed with having an oil samples done through speed diagnostics? Like with, what does the customer have to do, and what the costs are entailed with that, with having, or the different levels of diagnostics that can be done? Or
so like the basic one is $70, right? $69.95, and that's all in. Basically, all you do is you go to the website and you buy the kit.
Right.
And the kit ships to your house or wherever you want it to go. And when you open it up, it has a USPS prepaid mailer to be able to send the sample back to the lab. There's a sample bottle in there, instruction sheet. As long as you follow all the instructions on the instruction sheet, 7 to 8 business days after you drop it in the mail, send it back to the lab, get a report.
Right.
From me, gone over all the test results and created a custom report just for you that has all your information in there, and I put some comments down there, and that's where you have your piece of information. And it's literally that easy. I'll give you one data point. Of course, I'm looking at it from a global perspective, based on what we're saying.
Yeah.
If everything's good, you're not going to hear a lot from me. If you hear a lot of comments from me, that means there's something probably you need help with.
So when you do that, I guess it's in the instructions. Do you want to have oil that's in the car for a certain amount of time, or do you want it on a fresh oil change, or what's the...
Ideally, I like to see samples that are at least 3,000 miles. In that 3,000 to 5,000 mile range, a more, we call it representative sample. Because one of the things we want to do is we want to look at what we call the wear rate. So if we can take the number of miles on the oil and divide it, the total wear, divide it by the amount of miles, and then multiply it back out by 1,000, you can get kind of your wear rate per 1,000 miles.
Got it.
And that's good because you're in that kind of 3,000 to 5,000 mile range.
Right.
Like with math, right? Because we're dividing it and then multiplying it. If I have a very short amount of miles, if I have like 300 miles on it, well, then it's going to exaggerate the wear rate.
Right.
Conversely, if I've got 20,000 miles in the sample, it's going to minimize the wear rate.
Unfortunately,
so if you're really trying to look at which oil,
I got you.
In terms of wear rate, you really got to kind of keep it in that 3,000 to 6,000, 3,000 to 5,000 mile range.
And unfortunately, our wear rate for this hour is up. We're done. I have another show coming in. Kim's coming in with Thunder Road, Best of Springsteen. Lake, I appreciate you coming on. We want to have you back again in the future to talk about more stuff as your videos pile up. We love having you on. And thank you very much for coming on with us.
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right. So, for Chris Switzer, Ray Guarino, Lake Speed Jr., Motormouth Radio signing off. Chris, what do I tell people waiting for me in the parking lot?
Don't follow us home and get your oil checked with Lake Speed Jr. It's the best thing you could do.
All right, fellas. Thank you. On 90.3 WHPC, Motormouth Radio. Over and out. See ya.
See you, bye.